Well, hello, welcome to another 5 minutes with Sean, maybe 10. As always, I'm glad to have you here tuning in. Here we are about midway through July here on this July 15th. And it got me thinking throughout the course of the last couple of weeks that we're at the halfway point of the year. And there's been some talk about new car compression in some markets. There's obviously the discussion about used cars going through the roof. Finance and gross always kind of an issue. Also, the amount of inventory sitting on lots is becoming an issue in some parts of the country for some manufacturers. So it got me thinking, where are you at in the halfway point of the year? Let's talk about first, what goals did you set for yourself and how do you set them? Do you set them monthly and then sort of erase them? Do you have quarterly goals? Here we are through 2 quarters. Do you have a half-year goal? Or is it just a 12-month goal that you chip away at each and every month? Obviously, in the industry, I've seen a million different approaches. One of the biggest things that I preach to people and it has been shown to me over the years to be quite successful is this idea of forecasting. And it's forecasting from an advertising sense as far as knowing how much we're going to spend forward and what those goals are for the spend. And then you forecast out number of units sold, used, new and used, gross, etc. But the budget forecast is always interesting too, because what happens is when you forecast out budget, it helps you really eliminate shiny object syndrome, because what happens is if your budget is spent for the quarter, if a new vendor does approach you, if you do go to one of the shows and you do get excited by something, the fact of the matter is, if you're true to your forecast, you don't budge. You stick to what's working or what you're attempting to make work. The problem in our world is that all of us tend to pull too many levers at once to try and understand change. And so that's where I think we can go wrong. I think that if you want to change something, isolate it and then change it by itself, not changing any other factor around it but that, and see if that is the difference. See if that makes you go, okay, that was what I was looking for, that was the change I needed, etc. Because when we talk about changes for improvement, changing to change is never good, but here you are 6 months into a year, and for the majority of people, it sounds like new might be a little soft and used is up. If that's the case of the units, how does that match your forecast? And a bigger question, to take the forecast a step backwards, is how did you arrive at your forecast? Is it mathematical? Is it gut? Is it based on historical data? How did you arrive at it? Do you forecast out for the year? Do you forecast out for 6 months? Do you forecast out quarterly? Again, I know that sounds like a lot, but if you get ahead of it, like when we were in Vegas at NIADA, we were up on stage, myself, Dave Lemon, Marty Valdejulia, and one of the things Marty talked about was this idea of forecasting and sticking to forecasts, understanding how that unit was tied to that money, which was tied to this advertising approach. And then as he made changes, he made them within a quarter and then measured them against the previous year's quarter, right? Giving himself the best opportunity to understand where he was able to make a difference, right? So for me, I look at this and I say to myself, how do we go about the next 6 months to make them better? Looking at CarBiz Done Better as a company, we don't do goals, we don't do forecasting. Our goal here is to talk with as many folks as we can and partner with as many people that want the help. That we can afford to take on. So because we're a boutique company, because we're limited by size, and that is our approach on purpose, we understand that we can't help everyone. So here's what I ask you, is that if there is a compression, right, if you're feeling like less new cars are being sold, have you made the adjustment to used? More importantly, within new, have you isolated the models that are selling and did your best to eliminate what's not? And I understand that some of you are being sort of just pushed with inventory from the OEM side because, well, let's face it, they're wholesalers. So even if new cars maybe aren't selling overall, they're not going to post as much loss because they're making you take the cars. And I get that. My question is, what's the goal and how do we go and push that to improve future business? Because it doesn't sound like new cars are going to magically appear to be better over the next 6 months, even the year. Again, as we continue to adjust the SAR, I think you look back and you say to yourself, well, it's come down 1 million. How much further can it drop? that has to be part of your plan. And I'm not talking about everyone. I know there are plenty of people who are succeeding, but there are those that are sort of in the middle, and that's the ones that I'm trying to help, right? That's the ones I'm trying to address. So just go ahead and think about where you are with your staff, right? Make sure that you have the right people in place. Again, at the 6-month mark here, halfway point of the year, it's all about people and process. Check out Ben Hadley. Ben's doing some really cool stuff relating to people and process that I think is important for people to hear, similar to the stuff Sean Rains is doing, talking about the Strawley BDC with Vinny and Josh. Those guys are all focused on process and people. And I've got to tell you, the next 6 months of the year, that's what you should worry about. When you go to these big engagements with the trade shows and the nonsense and the lights, worry about the speakers talking to you about change in people and process. Don't get stuck on advertising. The game has flattened out in the advertising world. Okay, it's going to be about people and process the rest of the year. So make it your focus and do your very best to close this year out strong. I hope that through the first 6 months you have made adjustments and will continue to make them to get even better. Thank you guys so much for tuning in here. As always, 262-278-0157. CarBizDoneBetter@gmail.com. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Find us there. Comment, engage. We're happy to do it. As always, thank you so much for joining me and have a wonderful week.